My name is Todd Shaw. I am president of Save the Great South Bay, and it's truly a very special. It's very, very special to be here, standing here with these Waterkeepers today. This year, we announced the launch of the Long Island South Shore Waterkeeper, and it's a moment. Thank you very much, guys. And really, it's a moment that's been a long time coming. You know, Robin, I looked last night, I saw that the first application was in 2014. So it's been 12 years, right? So, and it really has been a journey, an amazing journey. So during that time, of course, we grew Save the Great South Bay to where it is today. You know, our programs in the midst right now of the Creek Defender program, where we have 16 Creek Defenders in every one of the towns along the Great South Bay. We picked up 80,000 pounds of garbage. We have 1,000 volunteers. It's just growing by the minute. Mine was last week. We had 75 people at mine. It's just been amazing. It's so inspiring. But I did want to just thank a couple people. First, I want to thank Pete Toppin. Pete has advocated on our behalf as he's been Waterkeeper. And Pete, I want to thank you for helping with this designation. The other person I want to thank is Robin Silvestri for keeping us focused and on track for all these years in order to get this designation. So thank you, Robin. And most importantly, of course, we'll talk about Andy, but you know, most importantly, I want to recognize Andy, who served as the Long Island South Shore Waterkeeper. I can't think of anyone more qualified and dedicated to this mission. Andy, thank you. So the South Shore is home to everybody, and now we have a true guardian once again for our waters. So just a big hand for everybody on the stage right now, please. So with that, what I would like to do is my honor to introduce our county executive, County Romaine, to say, Executive Romaine, to say a couple words.
Dave, thank you so much. Where's Dave? Okay. I want to thank the men and lady up here. These are the people that guard our waterways. And I could not think of a more important job on this island. We are an island. We are surrounded by water. Sound on the north, the Great South Bay, Mauritius Bay, Shinnecock Bay, on the south, and then eventually Fire Island. I saw Susie from Fire Island. Susie, say hello. And she's been a huge advocate for all the hamlets on Fire Island, and then after that, the ocean. I grew up here in Suffolk, in a lot of different places. First, I lived in Bayport by the Bayport Aerodrome. Then I lived in Hot Park by the Prince Egg Farm, which is close to the Bar Association on what was then Wheeler Road, long before the expressway was built, because I'm old. Then I moved to Central Islip. I lived in the first house built in Central Islip, the Bridger House, 50 Whiteside Avenue. Then I moved to Sable, and I lived at Candy and Maple. And when I was in Sable, we belonged to a little club where people would go and swim. It's now a town park at the end of Forster. And I remember as a young boy swimming in the bay, and I could walk out up to my neck and look down and see my feet. You can't do that anymore. You can't see your feet anymore in this bay. And that's disturbing. One of the biggest things that we fight for is how do we clean our water? There was an effort that started back in the early 70s to build a sewage treatment plant called the Southwest Sewer. And at that point, the county was interested in doing regional sewage for the county of Suffolk. That stopped because the Southwest Sewer District became mired in scandal. And after that, no one in county government wanted to touch sewage. It was not a good word. Now, our former presiding officer, Wayne So the county wound up, and today has, although not really, and I'll talk a little bit about that, 26 separate sewer districts. Do you know how many sewage treatment plants we have? Over 200. Over 200 in this county. Because when the county walked away from doing regional sewers, I want to build a condo, I want to build a shopping center. Every one of those people had to build their own little, I won't say inefficient, but their own little sewage treatment plant. They are all aging out now. The voters of this county very intelligently decided to combine all sewer districts that the county runs into one. We have one sewer district. We also did away with taxing people for sewers. So there is no tax for sewers run by municipalities. There is only a user fee. So there is no tax. As county executive, I am committed to planning out on a regional basis sewers to address the effluent. And I want to do tertiary sewers, sewers that recharge the aquifers, not like Southwest, which sends it a mile out into the ocean. Because all you have to do, we have a test case. It's called Our Neighbors to the West, Nassau County. You look at Nassau County, and you will see, particularly in southwestern Nassau, saltwater intrusion, because they pumped all their effluent from their sewage treatment plants out to bodies of water. So I want to make sure we not only have a water quality problem, but we don't have a water quantity problem, that we maintain our aquifers. So when we build, we will try to build sewers that are tertiary and recharge the aquifer. I know not too far away from here, in Idle Hour sewer project that I know our presiding officer, Legislator Picarillo, has worked very hard on, will start in June of this year. And we're hopeful that we'll do something. That sewer project was planned out by my predecessor and unfortunately connects to Southwest, because that will take its effluent out to the ocean. But the ones that we're going to build, and we're building now, will not do that. And we have several projects underway. But like anything, every issue of government is an issue of money. And anyone that served can tell you that. Show me your budget, show me how you spend your money, and I'll tell you what type of government you have. Well, we'd like to continue to spend, and I have to tell you, the people of this county have been more than generous, repeatedly. Just back in 2024, there was a referendum to add 1/8 of a cent to the sales tax. No one likes taxes. Passed by 72%. Woo! And it shows you the concern that our fellow citizens share about the future of this county and where it should go. That 1/8 of a percent, which we start to impose in March of 25, in 1 year, has raised close to $50 million. Now, the deal there in the referendum is that 50% would have to go to IA systems, denitrification systems, and 50% to sewers. So not a lot for sewers. And I'm sure if you ever take a look at the expenditures for sewers, you'd be surprised. We have, what is it, gentleman from? Long Island Association. Where do you live?
Shirley.
Shirley. Next door to Shirley, not too far away from where he lives on Northern Boulevard, is Massey. The county, and we have the legislator, who, by the way, is also my legislator, Jim Mazzarella. Give a wave, Jim. The last administration planned out sewers. Where's Peter Scully? He's here somewhere.
Dorian Dale is here.
What?
Dorian is here.
Okay. They planned out sewers for sure. Excuse me, for Maston. They did half of Maston, $228 million. Sewers are extremely expensive. If we would start a regional sewer program, you're talking billions. Right now, we're trying to speak with our governor, and I've spoken with him multiple times, but we have not received any funding for sewage from the environmental bond. Now, on the other hand, the state has provided 50%, with the county providing the other 50% for IA systems, which are those denitrification systems for individual lots. And those should go where sewage should not go. Sewage should only go where there is densely populated areas. IA systems are good for areas out west, out east where they have larger lots. So I want to give the state full credit for that, but we haven't seen the funding for sewer districts. And I try to talk to the governor about a number of things. We have the councilman from Iceland. I've talked to the governor because I said, Governor, you want housing? Iceland Town approved 3,500 units for housing at Pilgrim State, but it's not being built because they don't have a sewer solution. You want to see housing? And I agree with the governor that we probably could use more housing, but guess what? Housing doesn't happen alone. It happens with infrastructure. We need to concentrate on rebuilding the infrastructure of this island. So, first of all, I want to thank you all again for what you do to protect our waters. I stand ready to work with you and lobby with you and do whatever is necessary to make sure that our waters remain clean. Moving to sewers, moving to IA systems, moving to denitrify some of our aquifer, which all flows eventually north or south into the sound of the bay, is probably our best standard forward. So I want to see that happen, because without that happening, we're not going to have the really bright future that everyone is entitled to have in this county. So thank you for your service. I thank Great South Bay, and I appreciate it very much. I want to thank my colleagues, and I mentioned two of them, and I'll mention Steve here, Steve Flattery. He is working to try to get sewers for Fire Island, which is a hugely expensive thing, because you'd have to pipe it under the bed. So hugely expensive, but that has not discouraged us. And sometimes when people don't get discouraged, sometimes when people keep on plugging, they get surprised. They actually accomplish things and get things done for the betterment of all of us. So if I have to say one thing to this organization, keep on plugging away. You're making a difference. You're creating a better Long Island, and you're creating a better future for Long Island. And here in Suffolk, we take our environment, our bays and our waterways, our creeks seriously, and this organization, Save the Great South Bay, has done so much. We will be in their debt for a long time, and I want to work with them on an agenda to move this island to a much better future for all of us, for our children and our grandchildren. Thank you.
Did I steal your seat?
No, that's okay.
So
I
good
would have
morning, my
mentioned
name is
that.
Robin Silvestri. I'm the Executive Director for Save the Great South Bay. And I'm very eager to get started because I would like to hear from our panelists, but just a few housekeeping items that I'd like to take care of. First, I'd like to thank our Board of Directors for joining us today. If our Board of members could just stand up and be recognized, I'd appreciate that. Wayne, Brianna, James, Todd. As you know, our organization is volunteer driven, and these guys put in a lot of hours. I'd also like to thank the people who make our programs possible, including our creek defenders, our oyster garden leads, and our water quality partners. If you participate in any of those programs, please stand and be recognized. That would be Bill, Michael, Ed. Our programs incorporate thousands of volunteers every year, and we couldn't do what we do without them. I'd also like to thank our volunteers who are out today, Susie, Audrey, Kathy, and Ava and Lauren, Ed Reagan for helping us set up, Mark Soley, because again, our events can't happen without them. So thank you very much to our volunteers. And of course, finally, thank you very much to our sponsors who make these programs possible. Blessings Hospitality for lending us the view, which is incredible, and our refreshments, and to the New York League of Conservation Voters for supporting us. Thank you. Just before we dive into today's conversation, I want to take a moment to explain what it actually means to be a waterkeeper. The Waterkeeper Alliance is not just another environmental organization. It's a global movement of more than 300 independent waterkeepers protecting waterways across 6 continents. We're so proud to now be a part of this global movement. But their model is unique. It began on the Hudson River in the 1960s when commercial fishermen were frustrated with the polluters who were destroying their livelihoods. They decided that the river needed a full-time advocate, someone whose sole responsibility was to defend it. And this idea became the first riverkeeper. At its core, the waterkeeper is based on 3 pillars: independence, every waterkeeper protects their own body of water; science; and enforcement. These guys are not afraid to go after the polluters who are destroying our waterways. This is, a waterkeeper is not simply an educator, not just an advocate, and not just a scientist. They are the voice of a specific water body. So the job is singular and clear for them, to ensure that our waters are swimmable, fishable, and drinkable, and that it remains protected for future generations. So today you're going to be hearing from waterkeepers protecting the Peconic Estuary Preserve, the Peconic Baykeeper, the Long Island Sound through the Long Island Soundkeeper and his associate, the South Shore Bays through our newest waterkeeper, Andy Marshall, and the Hudson Raritan Estuary for New York, New Jersey, that protects out in the western Long Island. Each of these waters is different, ecologically, politically, and geographically, but they are connected by something bigger: the understanding that clean water is not optional. And this means standing up when others won't. It means following the science, and it means defending the water, sometimes quietly through collaboration, and sometimes boldly through enforcement. And today, we're going to take a look at what that looks like right here in our region for the Long Island Waterkeepers. With that, I'd like to introduce Dave Fatizo, who has graciously offered to moderate our event today. He's from the Long Island Association, which we have recently joined, and I recommend for any business that's looking to network on Long Island. It's a great organization. So with that, I'll hand it to you, Dave. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So, for everyone that is not aware of who the Long Island Association is, I just really want to speak from a high level so people have a better understanding. The LIA is the region's leading business organization working across industries of all kinds, advocating at a local and state level, basically to better Long Island as our region. We're very, very happy to be part of today's program and want to thank Robin, Todd, and the entire staff at Save the Great South Bay, and really think that they deserve a round of applause for not only what they've organized here today, but how they continually are out there advocating to protect and keep our waterways safe. Let's give them a round of applause. With that being said, today's event is really called Guardians of the Water. Today's conversation is about something deeply local and profoundly global. The water outside your windows here, windows at home, your local backyard, the water that your children swim in, the shellfish beds that define our coastal heritage, they are all part of something larger. The Waterkeeper model is built on a simple but powerful idea. Every water body deserves a dedicated, independent advocate someone whose sole job is to defend it. And more importantly, we are proud to introduce and celebrate the designation of the Long Island South Shore Waterkeeper. So, yeah, round of applause for me. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pose some questions and we're going to hear from each panelist on how they feel about it, and we'll try to keep it to a minimal on the answers with all respect to for time. So we'll start off with the first question, and that basically is, how would you describe your water body and what is the single greatest threat it faces right now? And we'll start with Andy and we'll work our way down, all right?
Perfect. Thank you very much. I do, before I go any further, want to express my gratitude to Save the Great South Bay. I joined them, about 6 or 7 years ago. They have been completely supportive. They opened my eyes to the power of the people. And one of their operating mottos is start where you stand, and that really works. That means a lot to me. It means a lot to the volunteers that we work with. They're happy to get out there and clean our environment up. I'm really happy to be in a position to take it one step further. Our water body here, my turf now goes from basically Bellport Bay west to Oceanside. So it's a pretty big expanse. The western bays are unfamiliar to me at this point in time. But if you had a map of the Waterkeepers turf, you will see that my turf is not only the water bodies, but it's also extends up onto Long Island, basically up to the expressway and a little beyond in some areas. So my focus and my concerns are not only going to be on the South Shore bays, the water that we see, the water that we play in, the water that we live in practically in the summer, but it's also going to be on land. I'm going to have a really large focus on the aquifer. I am going to push as much as I can to help speed along the process of IA conversions, because in my mind and people I've talked to, it's confusing, it's expensive potentially, and these things are really important to address. We need to get the ball rolling. We have money coming in now from the tax, and I want to see it spent. I want to see these sewers going in. Hey, I've only got so much time here on this earth. I'd like to see this water cleaned up while I can enjoy it too. We got a long way to go, but we're going there. And I'm happy to be part of it.
Excellent, thank you, Andy. Let's put it on to Bill.
Sure, hi. Can you hear me? Is this working? Okay. So I'm Bill Lucy, I'm a Long Island Soundkeeper, and I've been doing this job for about, not working? Hello? Wait, now I got it. I've been doing the job 8-9 years now. I'm originally from Connecticut. My grandmother did reside in North Babylon, and that's where I saw my first starfish. A little connection over here. I guess the issue that I think we're facing right now that's of greatest importance has got to be all the factors associated with climate change. That's really what we have to address, because all the gains we're making in nitrogen, which we in Long Island Sound had the lowest hypoxia ever recorded since they started looking at it this past summer. So you can check out the EPA website. That's several $1 billion of sewage infrastructure money that was spent in New York and Connecticut. So that's fantastic. But as you warm that water up, it's kind of like the old joke of the snail going up the well, right? It goes up 3 feet, slides back 2. When does it get over the top? So as you warm your waters, it changes a lot of the chemical reactions and your gains start to diminish. So we really need to deal with climate change. on a global level. We have to look at it regionally. We have saltwater intrusion, which is partially from sea level rise. We have incredible 9-10 inch rain events that are overwhelming our sewage systems. That closes our shellfish beds. And you see our fish species starting to change. We have 40 years of data, the trawl survey in Long Island Sound. You can see the cold water species giving away to warm. And who remembers a lobster? I fished out of Mount Sinai back in the mid-90s before the crash, and there were lobsters all over the place. Now they're essentially gone. Our eelgrass is diminishing. There's a lot of stressors on the environment, and I think a lot of it's rooted in climate change, so we all need to do our part.
Thank you, Bill. You know, similar to what our county executive said, I'm born and raised here on Long Island. I've lived in Shirley my whole entire life, and as a child, I remember my father going out with his friends, and they would always go clamming, which is rare. Obviously, you don't see that anymore, but I am so happy that there is a force behind cleaning up our regional waterways, and again, I'm very proud to be here and happy to have all of you here as a panelist fighting for all of us. So, Allison.
Hi everyone. Oh, cool, lovely. I'm not a fan of Mike still. So just to circle back again, Bill is Long Island Soundkeeper. I'm his doppelganger, associate soundkeeper, but mainly the Western Long Island Soundkeeper. And to put this into context, the Long Island Sound is over 100 miles long, 20 miles at its average across from Connecticut to Long Island. And when we really think about the largest stressors in the Long Island Sound, it's nitrogen, whether or not it's coming from fertilizer or sewage or dog waste. And so what this really means in the context of the watershed, we have millions of people that dwell along our coastlines. And with that many people comes a lot of demands on our infrastructure, like was spoken to earlier, as well as just demands on development. Which development's not always bad, but we need to be mindful of said development given our aging infrastructure. And so again, our watershed is expansive. It not only includes New York City, one of the largest areas and highly populated areas in our region, but our watershed, the Long Island Sound watershed, extends up into Canada. So it encompasses multiple states, which means that we have to think of a really large drainage area that lends itself into this one massive body of water, which is the second largest estuary in the US. So, yeah, we got our hands full. With that, I'm gonna pass it on.
Thank you, Allison. And I know you're feeling about the whole microphone thing. I am a very loud guy, so when I have the microphone in my hand, I feel like I have to be timid, but I'm getting kind of used to it, and I think you will too. All right, Pete, you're up.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Pete Topping. I'm the Peconic Baykeeper. I started in 2019. Our organization is based out of Hampton Bays, New York, so a bit further east. And the watersheds in which we work are essentially from Moriches Bay east. We were formerly further west, and we did a little jurisdictional changing to allow for the new Long Island South Shore Waterkeeper position, because I don't think you can ever have too many defenders for our waterways. So just the county's remarks about when he was younger and seeing his feet in the water really struck a chord with me, because we all have our origin stories that brought us here to this table and also this room. And it was the same for me. I'm Little Peconic. I remember being 4 years old, seeing my feet in the water. Next year, the water was chocolate brown from brown tide. So that was kind of the start of my journey. We know now that those causes are multifold. One of the biggest ones is nutrient loading. I commute slightly west every morning, and I'm so alarmed by truck after truck of fertilizer heading out to the east end to fertilize these manicured lawns. We also have the wastewater that's going into our water. And if you look, especially eastern Long Island where the forks are, a lot of the groundwater travel times are 5 years or less, often 1 to 2 years. So it really doesn't take very long from flush down the drain to flushed into the bay. So we're really big on promoting IA systems out on the east end. We've been trying to work with more doing more landscaping outreach programs, and of course, as Bill said, the big elephant in the room is also climate change, because that really, as the waters warm up, that really essentially amplifies all these other issues. So no shortage of work, and thank you for all being here today.
Thanks, Pete. Greg?
Hi, I'm Greg Ramone, New York, New Jersey Baykeeper. I'm a neighbor, not a Long Island Sound keeper, but I'm thankful to be here. And we keepers tend to work closely together and share a lot. As opposed to a lot of other keepers, we're really a complex of water bodies. It's New York, New Jersey Baykeeper, but that includes Raritan Bay, Lower New York Bay, the Lower Passaic River, the Lower Raritan River, and the Arthur Kill. So there's always many issues you have to deal with. In our territory, and the 2/3 the northern part are very urban. The single biggest issue that we have to deal with is legacy contamination from Superfund sites and other contaminated sites. We also have a lot of landfills that were municipal landfills that were never properly closed, private landfills that were never properly closed. So we do a lot of work in that area, and hopefully I'll get a chance to talk about some of the other things as we move forward with the questions. I just want to say one thing though. I had the pleasure of having dinner with Andy and Robin and James, and I thought I was going to come here and be, bring all this great wisdom and everything, but the instincts and everything that you all have done, and the community, the level of engagement far surpasses many groups who've been a lot larger and have been around a lot longer. So congratulations to you all. It's really exciting to be here.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you for the kind words. Well, I just want to let everybody know that as long as time is on our side, we're going to have a Q&A the last 15 minutes or so. So if you want to get your questions and your thoughts together, we're going to do that 15 minutes before the program ends. But let's move on to the next question, which is kind of around the whole science theory. So how does science inform your work, and how do you turn data into action? Bill, you want to go first?
Sure. So we have, someone asked me before this, how many scientists do we have on staff? And I kind of lost count. There's probably 8 or 9. So Save the Sound's our parent organization, and we have New York and we have Connecticut offices. And we turn out a number of products. So we have what's called a unified water study. So we're up to 30 volunteer groups all around Long Island Sound that collect water quality data 6 months out of the year. We also have a large bacteria testing program down in Westchester, Queens area. We put out the beach report. And those two products are completely science driven. It's all numbers. The beach report, we actually scrape data out of the EPA database, where you have to legally, if you have a beach where people from the public are going, whether municipal or state, you have to report bacteria levels every 2 weeks under the Safe Beach Act. So we just take that data and we display it into a big map that's online, so you can go to your individual beaches and see how you're doing. What's your grade? Same with the Long Island Sound report card. We look at all the water bodies, including all the little bays and harbors where we have these 30 different groups working, kind of like creek defenders, right? So that information will show us where all the bad areas are. And you could speak to one on Long Island, I believe, that we did this. But so if we find a red area or an orange area, we'll go to those places and try and figure out why are they getting those poor grades. We address it with the municipalities, we address it with the state, we address it with the EPA, and then we try and figure out what the strategies are to clean those poor areas up. But we do have a specific scenario on Long Island.
Sure, lovely segue. So we have an ongoing investigation in Rocky Point, so on the North Shore, Suffolk County, in which, based on the reports we put out, we had community members reaching out. This happens every year around the time that the beach report or the report card comes out. We're armed with data. People are of course, concerned about their local water quality, access to safe beaches and swimming and fishing. But on the North Shore of Long Island and Rocky Point, we had 2 beach associations that we are now working with to identify the root causes of bacteria levels that are closing their beaches, or at least making it harmful to swim or of concern based on discoloration, making them not want to use their waterfront properties. And so we are currently in this track down procedure of monitoring 4 major outfalls. Large drainages go into these 4 outfalls, and of course the major players at hand are likely going to be septics or cesspools. And so through lines here in which bacteria levels often are these diffuse sources that are really hard to identify. So if this is a nice foil for everyone else in Suffolk County, if you haven't yet looked at where your property's nitrogen sources are or bacterial sources are, definitely double check that you don't have a hidden cesspool or septic tank on your property. That'd be lovely to know. With that, I yield.
Yeah, you can go that way, and then we'll close it up with Andy.
One of the programs that we got involved with, we work with 2 other organizations, but we do bacteria monitoring in local waterways. Like Bill said, there is the Beach Act, which covers public bathing beaches, so those are lifeguarded bathing beaches, especially out on the East End, and I think in a lot of places throughout the Long Island. A lot of these places that are being highly used, whether it be clamming or just going for a swim on a hot July day, are not covered under that program. So we do that in partnership. We collect about 80 samples per week in the summertime. We make that data public as within about 24 hours. So that way people have an idea. We can't close the beaches, but of course we can make that information public. Also, when in cases where there are county beaches, the County Department of Health is also good at following up, so just to make sure everything's okay. And then the other data that I use a lot, we don't have a staff scientist, we're a small organization, but something that's been helpful for me, kind of getting back to that idea of starting where you stand. There are a lot of us, we're all here in this room because we care about the environment and care about the water. But I'm sure if I polled the audience, you all have that one special place that really is important to you. So I use the Suffolk County Subwatersheds Wastewater Subwatersheds Plan. It has these great maps that show groundwater travel time and nitrogen loading for each water body. So if I'm doing a community presentation to a group in Mattituck, I find their favorite creek and I put that up on the screen, because it's once they understand that in their watershed this is going on, it's not just Long Island, but this is what's happening right in their yard. It's very compelling. So we try and use data to kind of drive the public change that's needed.
Thank you, Pete.
In New York, New Jersey, Baykeeper, we're relatively small as well, so we don't have in-house science, but we're very fortunate, as you are, to have Stony Brook and access to many universities and folks with science and engineering backgrounds. 2 examples of how we've put science to use has been, one is with our oyster restoration program. New Jersey was loath to allow us to put out oyster shells in areas that weren't open waters, that had some contamination. And we wanted to put them there to filter the water, to act as barriers, for storm barriers. Salvation came from, we were very lucky at Earl Naval Weapons Base. The captain at the time, or the commander of the base, happened to was a diver and had just a great interest in marine biology. So this is a weapons base that battleships get loaded there. It appears 3 miles out. So he said, well, I don't think anybody's going to have any qualms about our security. Come on and build your reef with under our piers. So it was great to have that. It was a security zone, but the science, then we started to work, and a lot, we just got a lot of help from like Leventon at Stony Brook and other places, and working with the Navy to see what the impacts of different oyster formations were, oyster reefs, oyster castles, which ones were best at breaking water, what were the impacts. Another place, I'm sorry, I'm going on too long about that. I love that Navy story. The other one was we went out with Rutgers University. We went out different spots on the harbor, and we did trawl nets all over the harbor, and basically found wherever you go, you're going to get a significant amount of plastics. And that was written up in a scientific journal, was used to help pass legislation, including the ban of single-use bags at stores. So that was a great example of science coming into action, and it wasn't that hard, and it led to big things. I'll be briefer next.
Thanks, Greg. I will finish off this question with Andy.
What I've learned in my training to become a waterkeeper is, yeah, you let science lead the way. Sampling, sampling, sampling is what I kept coming across. And I can see, where else do you go? People want to know. They want to know the truth. They want to know the facts. We're science driven. That's how it's going to work for us. Another area we need to be concerned about, the county executive touched upon it, but it is a concern of mine and should be a concern of everybody here, and that is the housing problem on Long Island. And you don't stop development, but maybe you make it really smart. And that's what we have to keep focused on in Suffolk County. Numerous decades ago, when I was in graduate school, part of our entry examination was an oral exam in front of a panel of, PhDs that have been working in the field down in the Chesapeake and up here in New York for many years. And the question they posed was, you're familiar with the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. What are your 4 horsemen here on Long Island? And like I said, this is going back decades, but my horsemen then are pretty much the same as they are today. It's water quality, water quantity, sewage treatment, and population expansion. Those are the 4 things that were important, I hate to say it, 40 years ago. They're still important today, and they still work today. It's taken that long. Now that we finally passed that 1/8 of a cent is going to make a huge difference. It might take more decades than I have to get there, but we're on our way. What I want to leave is a legacy, as we all want to leave some kind of legacy, and that's making this a better place than I came into.
Great question, great answer, I should say, Andy. Thank you so much, and thank you for the answers let's give him a round of applause. So, this was mentioned earlier by a few of you, and that's climate change. So, how is climate change already impacting your waterways? And, Bill, you got the mic. Go for yours.
Yeah, go.
Well, I kind of mentioned already, I think the biggest example is the loss of the lobster fishery, which was directly tied to warming waters. And now we're in a situation where the commercial fleets are fishing down the food chain to whelk. So you see this around the world as these systems get stressed and we have large human populations, high extractive rates. You put a lot of stress on the ecosystems, and the way they respond is productive rainforest turns into bracken ferns. We got lobster fishermen now fishing snails in Long Island Sound. We've overfished our forage fish. We hardly have any river herring left. So all of that is a stress of human activity in the face of stressful environmental factors. And I had the pleasure of working in Alaska for 20 years where, we had some climate change, but we didn't have a lot of human factors. There's so much wilderness. Yeah, we harvested a lot, but it's amazing what Mother Nature can handle with humans partaking and extracting, like fishing or clamming, pollution even, when there aren't that many of us around. But once you start crowding people in, as Andy said, and you start turning that simmering up on the kettle, and you start bubbling that ecosystem with heat, that's when things start to go haywire, and they're going haywire fast. We've never seen the rate of rise. We've had times of the past where dinosaurs walked in Alaska. We get that. But the change in the CO2 and the temperature is at a rate that Mother Nature's having a very hard time keeping up with. So, yeah, I see the sound as a very different place than when I was a kid.
Yeah, following that one up. So to echo, temperature rises in the sound are definitely of concern, but what we also like to say at Save the Sound is when it rains, it pours. And when it pours with more frequent and intense storms with climate change, we see our systems that have already been struggling to accommodate the amount of people in our area in terms of wastewater and stormwater worsen. So it's exacerbated by our increasing storms in intensity and frequency. And so now more than ever, it's becoming important to really focus on our infrastructure because it's only going to become more challenging to cope with water quality problems. I will do a fun little plug for HABs, harmful algal blooms, which I'm sure everyone will also touch on with climate change. Harmful algal blooms are that fun secondary issue that comes with eutrophication or having a high nutrient environment. And with climate change, warming waters, they're going to also become an ever-present, more challenging concern to deal with.
All right. So we're also observing quite a bit related to climate change out east, echoing the issue with HABs. We get a lot of cochleodinium now, or rust tide, which really loves that hot summer heat, especially when it's been dry and you get a heavy input of rain. That really blooms pretty quickly. Also cyanobacteria, or blue-green algal blooms. And one thing I've noticed over the past few years is this shift of species. Just as Bill said, he's seen lobster disappear from the sound. There were some lobster further east in the Peconics, also around Shinnecock. I remember finding little lobsters under the rocks at Shinnecock Inlet as a kid. I don't see that anymore. And we're seeing new species come in. We're seeing these huge squadrons of cow-nose rays, which are mostly associated with the Chesapeake. I started noticing them in Shinnecock Bay years ago, and I've seen them in the Peconics as well. So this is just a species that would normally be held at bay by a temperature threshold, now moving into an already stressed ecosystem. And they're major predators of shellfish. They'll just kind of go through, and so then, it's this whole cascading effect. One story I like to tell with regard to sea level rise is it's a little hard to, sometimes quantify because it happens, or grasp because it happens very slowly. But as a kid, my family has owned some marshland, which they still own, beautiful tract of property, and we had a canoe there, and my job was always to get the canoe after a big nor'easter, and it would float across the marsh. And so it used to be I'd have to go wrangle it once a year, then it was twice a year. Eventually it got to the point where I had to make a rack, and that was good for a while. And now I have it high up on the rack, and I have to tie it down. So it was just these storms, just on the hyper-local level, were just pushing higher and higher, with these nor'easters and other events that were really just amplifying that. And I'm seeing a lot of areas, including places that have cesspools, which is a big concern, underwater more frequently than they used to be before.
So yeah, we've experienced very similar issues with climate change. I'm trying to think of a couple to add that haven't been talked about. One is, leading off of what Pete said, is the strength of the nor'easters and the damage that they do. And what's made it a little bit worse, or at least maybe I'm biased, but some of the towns that were hit were the fishing communities on Raritan Bay, Union Beach lost a quarter of its housing stock. And that area, the other areas that are hit were the remnants of our fishing community. We still have a commercial fishing fleet, but it's smaller, and they got hit hard. So it's the impact of nor'easters. And then another thing that people don't always think about, but up in the New Jersey Meadowlands, the marshes are drowning. A lot of the wetlands that we had and that were so valuable and for a variety of reasons are getting lost. So one of the things we're doing is we've been working with legislators to push the Army Corps, instead of taking the clean dredge spoils from the harbor and taking them out into the ocean and just dumping them there, causing some problems. Why not use it to do a better job with the beneficial reuse? And I know that's an issue around here. I've talked to some folks, but drowning marsh is one not everybody thinks about, but is prevalent.
So let's talk about infrastructure, and I know Andy had mentioned sewer and smarter housing. That would be a tremendous help. What policy or infrastructure change would have the greatest immediate impact on water quality? Andy, we'll start with you.
I think it starts in your backyard. People have the power to change things on a really local level. And if I was going to give any advice to take away from here, is start where you stand. Start in your backyard. Pull out some of the invasives, put in some native plants, stop fertilizing. I've lived in my house for almost 40 years now. I've never put fertilizer, I've never put pesticides down, I've never put anything like that down. Put a little dirt down here and there, reseed once in a while, rake it out. It's easy. You can leave it alone and it'll do fine. My front lawn is green. I live in a nice neighborhood. I've got very particular neighbors. They're a little upset with me because I believe in letting nature do what it wants. And we've been very successful with that. So that is the one takeaway I would give people here. Work in your backyard or front yard.
So if the normal person, the normal homeowner wanted to find information on what they could do to help, where could they find that information? I know you mentioned don't fertilize, plant natural, but where could they find additional information that could support and help the cause?
There are numerous organizations on Long Island. Long Island Native Plant Initiative is one of them. There's several others. There's plenty of information out there. And you can go to our website to find more information about fertilizers and native plants.
That's great. All right, Bill?
Yeah, and you can go to State and Sound's website too. We have the healthy lawn every spring. We have a lot of those same tips. But I mean, Andy's right. If you think about it, all the wastewater treatment facilities, all the manufacturers, they all have what's called National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permits, NPDES permits. So our lawyers can get a hold of a permit and clean things up. There's a fulcrum there. The real problem now is that it's all of us. It's that non-point source pollution that Andy was talking about. It's easy to go after a big polluter, but it's a lot harder to change societal behaviors. And that's really what we have to do. And one way I think that really would make a difference is similar to the 8% tax. You need the money. In Connecticut a couple of years ago, we passed a law that allowed all the municipalities to form stormwater utilities. That means you would get a fee charged for using all the culverts and outfall pipes and the runoff system. And there's a million things you can do: bioswales, rain gardens, manufactured wetlands. All this stuff will capture all the runoff that we're creating and filter it out before it gets into the groundwater or into the surface water. So I think the most immediate thing we can do, to your question, is look at what we're doing. Same answer as Andy.
Okay, I'm gonna move a little bit larger in spatial scale to add some diversity to the conversation. In my neck of the woods, the Western Narrows, one of the biggest concerns for us is coming from New York City, as well as Westchester and Nassau, right? And one of the hidden gems that could be a game changer for the sound is a program coalition really called Renewable Rikers. Renewable Rikers is currently a blight in New York City and New York State more broadly, but it also could be a massive game changer for decarbonization in our state, as well as wastewater treatment plant infrastructure. And so definitely check out the feasibility study, but if you don't want to read through the jargon, the overarching scope is to overhaul Rikers Island and turn it into a source of renewable energy through solar, as well as a state-of-the-art wastewater treatment plant, which would essentially take off the burden from 4 peaker plants in the area. Fundamentally change the game. But that, of course, is a long-term goal here, say like 2060 online. So yeah, thinking locally, absolutely, but also we gotta keep thinking about the future because this is a large-scale issue at hand as well.
So I agree with landscaping. That's a very easy thing. We can change that instantly. And then of course, out on the east end, Eastern Suffolk, septics continue to be a big issue. The county has made great strides. The local municipalities have made great strides. There's funding available. All great things. But what I see is because of the way things that the regulation currently is, a lot of these new systems are going in the ground with new construction, or when a small house is built, a 2-bedroom to accommodate a 5-bedroom or 7-bedroom house. So there's the issue of grandfathering. So we still have a lot of homes. The East End was settled back in the mid-1600s. Some of these homes are hundreds of years old. Their cesspools, if they even have one, are a few hundred years old as well. So it's kind of how do we keep on ratcheting the pressure down? How do we make it easier for the average homeowner? And I know this has been an issue with the county, with expediting this and promoting good behavior and saying, okay, you're here for a voluntary upgrade. You're moving to the front of the line. We want to help you because you're motivated. So we want to reward people as fast as possible that want to do the right thing and make it easy for them. We have funding in place. We just need kind of the staff and also just some more guardrails to kind of compel people to do what we already know they need to do.
Thanks. So I'll take this opportunity to state the obvious. One of the things that with all these great, whether it's home gardening, rain gardens, cleanups, which I know you do an extraordinary number of, and I think you're already doing this, and what most keepers do is you ratchet it up. Because once you get folks out there, well, why is all this garbage? Where is it coming from? There's a whole host of policy issues that stem from very simple actions. We have folks, we have kids who make oyster cages for us, for the oyster gardens. But then they start asking the next questions. What else can oysters do? Oh, they can filter this much water. So it's just basically all, again, it's the obvious, is taking the simple and just, to use Pete's word, ratcheting up to higher policies.
Great, thank you. All right, so if there was one example of a collaboration that worked and gave you hope, I'm starting with you, Andy.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. He's in the room. It's the Nature Conservancy. Carl LeBou. Where are you, Carl?
Where is Carl?
There he is.
Stand up, Carl.
Part of the end game with the oyster gardens is to transplant them into sanctuaries. We built up the program. We now have 6 oyster gardens. We're going to add a few more this year. I have founded 4 different sanctuaries where we outplant the products from our oyster gardens, and we also direct plant spat on shell from Cornell. The beauty of it all, and why is it encouraging to me? Because we're we're simple people. We do our oyster planting as free planting, so we avoid the Army Corps of Engineers. We're not doing a lot of hardscaping on the bottom. We are free planting oysters. Carl was generous enough to offer some sites that the Nature Conservancy controls as an experiment, and of the 4 different sanctuaries, 2 of them are with the Nature Conservancy, and one of them knocks my socks off. We went back 1 year, exactly 1 year after our first planting, and I couldn't walk on the bottom without stepping on clusters of oysters. That was like an eye-opener. And subsequent to that, we have gone back, and remarkably, these oysters are staying pretty much where we put them, and they are growing like crazy. If I pointed, don't go there, but it's over there. It's outside the Connecticut, as is another site which is a little further east, which is also doing pretty well. They both greatly outperformed my other 2 sites. So that gives me a lot of hope. And I'm going to continue to garnish that hope and work for a bigger and a better Great South Bay.
Great answer, love that. Bill?
Yeah, one collaborative effort that started, I think 3 years ago, is Cornell Cooperative had a ghost gear project removing lobster traps. And we had to get the law changed in Connecticut for us to partake in that. And so we went to the legislature, got the law changed, which allowed nonprofits to get involved. So now we have the Norwalk Maritime Aquarium, Save the Sound, and Project Oceanology, which is at the UConn Marine Science Campus up at Avery Point, sectioning up the Sound. Cornell is still handling the New York waters. And we've got funding now, I think it's our 3rd or 4th grant, started with congressionally directed funding out to 2029. So Cornell had already gotten a couple of 20,000 traps out, and we've started doing this in Connecticut. I think we're close to 25,000 ghost traps as a whole project removed from Long Island Sound with another 3-4 years of funding. We have dedicated captains that used to fish lobsters. They have a lot of knowledge. We're bringing in sonar work now to try and enhance detection. So it's been a really, really successful project, and we're getting thousands of old derelict lobster traps out of Long Island Sound.
So one of our other programs at Save the Sound that's a collaborative effort is our eelgrass restoration program. So this is in partnership with Remote Ecologists, another nonprofit organization, as well as Rob Vasilith, who I know he's here today somewhere. There he is in the back. So we're implementing a method developed by Rob that's seed on clam as the method, where we're integrating this really lovely mutualism of clams helping seeds to bury and then have better germination. So essentially a more efficient way to do eelgrass restoration. And as part of this larger collaborative, we're engaging community members as well as other organizations, including UConn's Conn College, actually, Dr. Maria Rosa and Conn College, UConn more broadly. But yeah, so millions of seeds, millions of clams, well, not millions of clams, I wish, thousands of clams going back into around Westbrook and Connecticut.
So I touched on this a little bit earlier, but one of our programs that we run more seasonally is a bacteria monitoring program for local waterways. And we do that in partnership with the Surfrider Foundation of Eastern Long Island and also the Concerned Citizens of Montauk, who are all the way out east. So collectively, we manage about 80 sites in the season, and what we're able to do is use our organization's kind of geography to independently manage volunteers that go out every Monday and sample various sites. We have a lab set up in our office in Hampton Bays that we started in 2020, and then also there's one in Montauk. And then we pool our data, so that way we can kind of broadcast that jointly. We developed a quality assurance project plan cooperatively, so we run through the same protocols, and it's really just allowed us to amplify kind of our reach and cover as many water bodies as possible.
I have the honor and privilege of co-chairing what's called Newark DIG, and that stands for Newark, the City of Newark, Doing Infrastructure Green. And the whole idea, and this can be, this model can work anywhere, but it's representatives, community groups from all 5 wards, and they went out and they listed the areas that flooded the most or where there were stormwater problems. And they map that, and then we set up what are called GI reformers. So when we put in rain gardens and green infrastructure, local kids from the community would get paid to go to their neighbors, say, hey, here's what's here. Baykeeper just went in and put in a rain garden. People might, it's probably gonna turn to a wreck, no one's gonna care about it, it's just a structure that's there. But you have neighbors going to neighbors, and that created a huge movement. So we have GI reformers. We went through and we worked with the City of Newark because we brought in money. We brought in technical assistants and engineers who could do draft plans for green infrastructure projects. We made it very easy on the city. The city engaged. Now we have a universe of 125 sites and 15 priority sites, and are installing green infrastructure, restructuring a whole city block with trees and large wells to hold the large quantities of water and re-release them over time. But it's been really powerful because, and I think you already are doing it more than some of what we're doing in parts of New Jersey, but because it came up from the community, because folks are engaged, it just keeps growing. More people want to give us money, more people want to partner. And Ed, this is for you. I don't know where Ed went, but also these kids are getting now, these teens are getting trained. Folks from Newark are getting trained to implement green infrastructure, and they're getting apprenticeships, they're getting paid, and now they're actually working on other green infrastructure projects around the state. So it's a great thing to be part of. We're the fiscal sponsor and we provide regional oversight, but it's a great program and collaborative.
Thank you. And just to piggyback off of that, and this is mainly for Andy and Pete because of the region, any collaboration with some of the local educational institutions? Greg mentioned, we have Stony Brook that's right in our backyard. Is there any kind of collaboration or communication with some of those educational institutions in an effort to help?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a lot. Cooperative Extension of Suffolk County supplies us with materials for the oyster gardens. They also provide expertise if we need it, an extra hand if we need it. They've been wonderful. Stony Brook, same thing. We work closely with them. Christopher Gobler is one of our premier quarterly speaker event people. That keeps us apprised of the state of the bays once a year. It's a great collaboration with them. With the local high schools and middle schools, we're getting more engaged with them. We do tap them, we do advertise when we're having cleanups in areas of certain schools. The South Shore of Long Island, if you look, almost every high school, almost every school property borders some kind of waterway. That's how they built schools, when they had to build schools for some reason. Let's put it on the creek, I don't know. It's property that wasn't used otherwise, I suppose. But yeah, we're engaged and will continue to be. And James is spearheading an educational effort so that we are sure that we have more penetration into the local schools. That's it for me.
Yeah, so we're very close to the Stony Brook Southampton lab, and Dr. Chris Gobler was actually a professor of mine when I was undergrad, so it's great having, even though we don't have a staff scientist, we have amazing research scientists nearby who are always a sounding board if you have questions about something or need something sampled. And then we also, we do a lot of education, so especially out on the East End, I could probably count on one hand the amount of people that I grew up with that are still able to afford a place out there, mostly because they inherited one. So that leads to another problem. We have a shifting baseline of population that continues to move out there and says, oh, isn't this lovely? Yes, it is, but we're losing that collective consciousness or memory of what it used to be, and how do we restore or even attempt to restore or work toward that end when we lose the memory of what that thing was. So, you know, that's one of what I think is the most rewarding aspect of the job is, you know, when you do have time to get kids out on the water or get their feet wet, and it might be something you took for granted or thought was really simple, and for them it's the most exciting thing ever. So we do a lot of education. In particular, I try and work with different groups. There's an organization called the Latino Advocacy Organization, or OLA, the East End. Organization under heavy scrutiny right now, and I work with their summer camp. They provide a free summer camp. We provide a couple days of marine science education with them. I also work with an organization called the Butterfly Effect Project, which works with underserved girls, primarily around the Riverhead area. And so we're able to kind of partner with these organizations that already, you know, are already doing a great job of bringing certain groups together, and it's so much easier than me trying to find all these people on my own. I can just reach out to these groups, and it's always a great collaboration and extremely rewarding, because these are the kids that would not have the opportunity to experience these things otherwise.
Great, thanks. And to piggyback off of some of the things that Pete said, can we talk a little bit about the importance of community engagement? Andy, I know you spoke about getting into the school districts and trying to educate the younger kids. How is that working? Are we seeing an impact? Are they getting more involved? And do you see a benefit from really trying to teach the youth today about how it was and what your plan is to try to get it back to the same standards?
Yeah, we do a lot of youth work, specifically on water quality. We have a junior sailing group. I think we were in 27 different clubs in Long Island Sound, teaching those kids about the various aspects of water quality and marine debris. We have our program specifically has an internship that was funded by what's called Bridgeport Horizons. And so those Horizon program are a lottery where they take a person from an underserved community and they give them private school education. So in this case, it's Bridgeport. They go to a private school, Green Farms Academy and Sacred Heart University. And these kids, it's the nature versus nurture argument, that they end up taking all AP classes. And we had one, the mother did not speak English. Fortunately, I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Guatemala, so I was able to talk to the mother and compare recipes and things for some of the fish you're catching off the boat, which we're not supposed to do, right? Lunch break fishing trips. But anyway, this person changed her entire outlook. So she was in school, going to go to college, and then after a summer of picking out freeing creatures from these lobster traps and doing bacteria sampling in West Haven, and getting things cleaned up, they went to school for marine science. We've had a number of our interns do that. So we're planting as many seeds as possible, from high quality internship to going out and talking to classrooms.
pass it along, man. I like to get the, feedback from everybody. Well, Pete, you kind of just, you spoke about your interaction with your local community, but Greg, how about you?
Sure. On the education part, we have a great director of urban education, Keon Walker. And there's 3 programs. One you're familiar with, the oyster gardening. Gets folks out to sites and see the growth of oysters and water quality measurements and things of that sort. We also have a Ocean Pathways program. We're the East Coast partner for another facility out on the West Coast in Los Angeles. And the idea there is to train young folks in the green and the blue economy. So Baykeeper works on the green economy part, and we take folks out to the port, we take young folks to see job opportunities, but we also take them to aquaculture. There's a clam depuration plant. And so in each one of these, you're making connections to just more and more folks. More individuals are getting exposed to the environmental issues. One thing that we do with our urban environmental programming, which is slightly different than some other folks, is that everything is directly connected to issues that are in their neighborhoods. So depending upon where the cohort of children are from, what issues they're facing in their communities, we direct the curriculum to address those issues so that and it's applied. So it's not just an idea about ecology, it's something that's going on in your neighborhood, something that you can do about it, and that leads to all kinds of engagement.
Awesome, thank you. Next question before we get to Q&As. Okay. Looking ahead 10 years, what worries you the most if current trends continue the way they are? And they're passing the golden microphone over to Andy.
I'm happy to take it. 10 years is not a very long time. What are the trends that I see? I see Long Island. Let me back up a little bit. Here's a little backstory. I've been really ticked off at New York State for a very long time. Why? Because compared to other states along the East Coast and their fisheries, New York State was not doing a good job. You go down to Chesapeake Bay, of course they had a huge oyster fishery there that got decimated. They put tons of dough into it. They had tons of really big programs, a lot of funding. New York, in my view, really seemed to be lagging behind. We're catching up now, and I wanted to make this point because there is something positive to say. We are starting to see bay scallops in Great South Bay. We are hearing anecdotally, and I've experienced some myself directly, that we are getting sets of clams, hard clams, that we haven't seen before. In terms of my oyster work, no, we're not getting recruitment yet. I don't expect we will. There is recruitment out by the oyster farms. So the theory, if you plant enough oysters in enough places, they will eventually become self-sustaining. That's sort of the drive behind my project, but I wanted to let you know there is hope there. Thank God for the oyster farmers that we have here that are showing there's promise in this bay. The anecdotal evidence I'm getting shows it's not dead. No, not dead yet, not gonna be dead, not in my lifetime, not in yours. We're bringing this place back, and it's coming back. There are signs of hope, and I want people to hold on to that.
Hey, let's give Andy a round of applause for that one. Bill, that's tough to follow that.
Well, I was going to say the same thing. Because basically, if you look at the nitrogen reduction, and as I mentioned before, we're at a 20-year low of nitrogen. We have the lowest hypoxia that's ever been measured in the history of the LINAP program. So that is a huge indicator. We've seen dolphins in Long Island Sound, we've seen whales in Long Island Sound. There are turtles showing up. Part of that's climate change, but we had tracks coming up on a beach in Brantford potentially laying eggs. Our volunteer groups are growing for beach cleanups every single year. We are seeing an expansion of our shell fishing efforts. We're seeing the eelgrass collaborative coming together to try and halt and reverse the decline of eelgrass. We have upgraded all our sewage treatment plants to the point where we had a nitrogen trading program, so the bad plants could buy pollution from the good plants that had money. Last year, those credits weren't worth very much at all, which is a good thing. That means all the plants were up to snuff. Now we're going upriver. So now we're engaging with Holyoke, Chicopee, and Springfield, because 40% of the nitrogen coming to Long Island Sound is coming from the Connecticut River. So if you think about that, we're taking care of our backyard, and now we're going to farther and farther areas to clean things up. So people are rising to the occasion, to echo what Andy was saying. People are tired of the pollution. You know, it's the 21st century. Should we really still be having our beaches shut down for sewage spills? So I think with the New York, the Bond Act, the money keeps getting larger for that. We're getting support from the state. Connecticut as well is the most progressive clean water funding mechanism, probably one of the top 3 in the country. So I think if everyone just keeps putting pressure on their legislators and are willing to pay out of pocket to throw in, I think, as Andy said, I think we're going to be in really good shape in the near future.
Thanks, Bill.
So the change I would like to see in the next 10 years is that we actually have open oyster beds in the Western Narrows. Wouldn't that be lovely? Which means tackling bacteria and nitrogen. But we'll see.
Yeah. So the thing, again, it always seems like in the environmental world, it's like a lot of doom and gloom, and you're kind of getting things piled on you. But then going back, I just think back to when I was a kid. The majority of my life, growing up, the bays were in pretty bad shape. There weren't really any fish to catch. I never went on a whale watch, never saw a whale off Southampton or the ocean beaches. And now I have 3 young kids, and I'm like, oh, there's a whale, and they're just, yeah, whatever, Dad. Like, so what? A whale, big deal. But there is, I do firmly believe in the resiliency of nature if you give it a chance. Just as when we reduced the menhaden harvest, you had that population go up, which brought in the whales. And I firmly believe that with the passing of the Suffolk County Water Quality Restoration Act, it is going to take time, might be well beyond 10 years, but we know what the problem is. Out east, over 70% of the nitrogen loading in the watershed is from wastewater on average. And if we start doing that, that's a huge lift in reducing the load to our bays. So, my goal is just to leave this world in a little bit better shape, at least with regard to my waterway, than it was for most of my life. And I think we have the technology, we have the funding on board. So it's really just, again, ratcheting down, making these changes, making them faster and faster, so we kind of push away that problem rather than keep on adding to it.
Thanks, Pete.
Yeah, like everybody here said, it's great. There's more reason to be happy on the ground level. Our water quality in our areas are improving. Toxic materials are being removed to waterways. There's a really healthy engagement from the public. What I worry about is rollbacks to the Clean Water Act, which are occurring now, and the effects will impact us for more than 10 years. And then the other, I guess the big ray of hope, or what I believe we need, and so many people do, is just, it's culture. I mean, you guys are already doing it. Not everybody is tight and as engaged as you are. And it's a world, as we all know, it's pretty divisive. You say black, I say white, and we don't talk about it. And so that has to change over the next 10 years. You have to be able to give and take a little bit and focus on the issue, not the personalities, not the political party.
Excellent, thanks you, everybody. Before we get to Q&As, can we just get a round of applause for these amazing individuals and what they're out there doing for our waterways?
Thank you, and before we get to the Q&A, I'd just like to bring Rihanna Quinrade up to the podium. She has a little plug for us.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. What a great panel. I appreciate that so much. And thank you, everybody, for being here to support Save the Great South Bay. As you know, we are a small but mighty team. Robin, Lauren, Ava work to support us on a daily basis. And as you know, from those of you who attend our speaker series regularly, last year I stood up and talked about our oyster ball. This year, our oyster ball will be held at Heckscher State Park on the beach. And I have to tell you a little story. When I joined the board, I met with Todd and I said, Todd, we need to have an annual event. We need to raise some operating funds. And Todd said, my dream is to have a party on the beach. Well, the first 2 years, this is our third annual oyster ball. First 2 years it was not at the beach, but every once in a while the bat hits the ball. And this year, we will be on the beach at Heckscher under a beautiful peak tent. We envision about 300 people attending. We have Rich Mahogany as our band, and our beautiful supporters of Lessings will be catering the event. So it is September 12th at 6 p.m. Tickets can be found on our website, savethegreatsouthbay.org. We are looking for individual ticket purchases. We are looking for table purchases. And very importantly, we are also looking for corporate sponsors. So please, give a call to Save the Great South Bay and see how you can support us, because I want that 10 years. I want those 10-year dreams to come true. Thank you very much, everyone. Look forward to seeing you at the Oyster Ball.
Thank you, Rihanna. So I'll take questions from the audience.
I'm curious to know if you have looked into the use of kelp for cleaning up the waters.
I'll start. Yeah, we did a project in the Merrimack Harbor a couple years ago. And so the idea is to put the kelp out in the wintertime when the boats aren't using the slips. It wasn't a very successful growing season there. Kelp's very seasonal, and as you go farther west in the sound, the water quality decreases, and that kelp's pretty sensitive. There has been some work by Stony Brook on bioextraction rates of kelp, and Green Wave is one of the organizations that is in Guilford, Connecticut. They're right next to our clam farmer who provides all the clams for our eelgrass projects. So the jury's still out on that, but there's definitely a lot of positive potential with it. The issue we had, because it came out of UConn, the whole kelp productivity or production methods for the sound anyway, and the markets aren't there. So there have been people who've grown a lot of kelp, and they don't know what to do with it. So because the markets are kind of cornered by Norway and Japan and Maine, you could buy kelp for fertilizing your garden from Maine, but we just haven't got there in Connecticut. But maybe on the outside of Long Island, I don't know.
Any other questions? Oh, here you go. Thank you.
Hi, I'm wondering if the members of the board have any.
Hit the button.
I'm wondering if the members of the board have any input on the proposed secret changes that are being proposed. It's an environmental, New York State is trying to modify the process to, I guess the trend is to, the stated trend is to create more affordable housing But I know I was listening to a report yesterday on WNYC, and Hudson Valley Riverkeepers had opinions. They didn't really think that the proposed changes were really going to target affordable housing. They saw it more as general, that just let the developers run free or something. So I wonder if members of the board had any input on the proposed changes.
I'll just answer really quick because we have lawyers assigned to this. The same thing's going on in Connecticut. We fought it for 3 years. And so because of past racial redlining, there's a big component of both the New York and Connecticut legislators that see these rules as a way for segregation, because there's that camp. And then you have the other camp, which is our camp, which that's not what it's based on. It's based on not filling wetlands and not polluting our waters. Whether you're rich or poor, you need clean water. You want to be able to eat clean fish when you go fishing. You want to swim in clean water. So we have a policy team in New York dealing with it. We're somewhat in line with Hudson Riverkeeper. I think the intent is really good for both governors. They do want affordable housing. We have housing issues. We made sure to come with a detente to Connecticut that you can't waive the environmental reviews on the Inland Waters and Wetlands Act in Connecticut. The New York policy stuff I'm not as familiar with, so I probably, you got it.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit. So SECRA, the State Environmental Quality Review Act, it essentially requires for certain types of actions an environmental impact statement and a hard look. So it doesn't mean you can't eventually reach the same conclusion and build XYZ development, but it does require an environmental impact statement, which takes a lot more time and resources. So I think the intentions were good in let's get affordable housing built, let's remove some of the red tape, but there's some wording with the law where it doesn't necessarily mandate that affordable housing would be the result. And at the end of the day, you're essentially taking away protections which should be there in all cases, just to potentially move along a process. So we're not supportive of the changes. A lot of the other environmental organizations, Group for the East End out in Eastern Suffolk, they've been very vocal about this. I know David Ansel with Save the Sound has as well. So the environmental community at large, I can't speak for everyone, is not supportive of the current changes.
Yeah, hi. I was wondering if, I think the end of last year, the proposition was voted in Suffolk County for the cesspool and septic. If someone could maybe give us an update on that, and if it's gained any traction, where we are with implementing those policies?
Because I can answer that question.
Are you talking about the, oh, hey, Paul. Are you talking about the tax?
Yeah, it's the septic and cesspools tax that
Yeah.
will allow for, folks to be able to, take care of their properties.
Yeah.
Bill,
Yeah.
I can take that one if you
Go
want.
for it, yeah.
Yeah, so last November, that referendum was on the ballot and it passed by 70%. So people voted absolutely for water quality and improving the cesspools. I think County Executive Romaine mentioned that it had already raised, that 1/8 of a cent sales tax went into effect, and it has already raised over $50 million. They expected to raise billions by the end of it in 2050.
Yeah, just to add to that, Paul, so I'm also part of the Long Island Sound Partnership, and we travel to Washington, D.C. every year to lobby for Long Island Sound Geographic Program money, which was $4 million when I started my job. Now it's at 40, and we've been able to hold it, probably because Lee Zeldin's from Long Island. So we did meet with him last summer. But part of the package there was that money that was provided by the municipalities as grants was being counted as income on your taxes. And so we were able as a group, and Adrian Esposito is a big part of this, through Schumer, to get a line inserted in a budget package that said, no, that does not increase your wages, so you get a grant and have to pay tax money on the grant. That was really slowing down some of the impetus. We cleared that hurdle, and now you have a reoccurring revenue stream. And I know Nassau, we went to DC with the Nassau folks who are also, they've installed maybe 100 of these ATS systems in Nassau County. I mean, Suffolk was the leader, right? So you guys are really poised to take off. I mean, $50 million, and if half of that's going to ATS systems, that's $25 million for, you know, $30,000 grant to go to each of the landowners. It's gonna really speed stuff up, which will help very fast.
If I may, my name is Bill Doyle. I'm the Assistant Deputy Commissioner of Health of Suffolk County, and IAs are under my overview. So to give you a quick update, yes, we are in the, Edmund Maine is very focused on putting together procedures of a very easy portal to actually put the application in. We're streamlining the regulations. You'll have to have septic approval going forward to get a grant, but we're going to be able to give the grants out very quickly, very much, and probably do like 1,200 grants this year. That's all right.
Thank you, Bill. Any other questions? Please. Here you go, Brian.
Not a question, but just a statement. First of all, thank you for this event today. Save the Great South Bay is great. I'm from the United States Geological Survey. We've been an agency with a presence on Long Island for over 100 years, studying water resources on the island. We are still relatively intact. We're still doing the good work, and we're here to support all the agencies that are looking at protecting the water resources, not only groundwater but also surface water is extremely important. So I just wanted to say that our agency is still very focused on our mission. Encourage everyone to go to our website, usgs.gov. We have an incredible amount of useful information. We have real-time data stations, interactive websites that give a tremendous amount of information and insight into our water resources. And again, we're here just to advance the science and to support everyone who is interested in our water resources.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you. So if there are no more questions, we're going to wrap it up for today. I want to thank. Oh, sorry, James has a question.
More of a statement. More of a statement. I just want to really thank all the Waterkeepers for coming up. Our origin story is that two guys came back to their reunion, to a reunion, and when they had left high school in 1977, the water was cool and clean. They came back, it was brown and warm. It was an idea for 5 years, but when Robin and Todd got involved, their aspiration was to become part of the Waterkeepers. That was an aspiration for us, and that is really when that pursuit is when we found our legs as an organization. That's when we started our cleanups, which is really when we became a real organization. Todd's the creek defender for Babylon. He's responsible for those cleanups. We've collected 82,000 pounds of debris. And I think for me, we're not content with where we are. And I think the idea behind having all the Waterkeepers speak to us, we want to up our game. We want to be your colleague. We want to be your ally member because we want to save the Bay. But I think Robin and Todd changed this organization and made us a real organization. And the fact that you are investing your time in us, I'm just immensely grateful because I think this is the path towards us becoming what we view as really, really making a difference. We're great at volunteer engagement. We give people an opportunity to do something, to feel better about contributing to the environment. That is our key strength. But what Andy's doing with our Oyster Project Like that's the rubber hitting the pavement for me. Because now we're in the water, and that's where we're healing it. But thank you for your leadership. Thank you for allowing us into the Alliance. This is a dream come true. This is probably, next to us forming, the second most important moment in our organization's history. I'm just really grateful for you spending the time with us, for welcoming us into the Alliance. And Todd and Robin, thanks for making it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, James. And I'd like to say once again, thank you to Andy and Bill and Allison, Pete and Greg, and to Dave for coming out and moderating for us today. Grab a pastry on the way out. Thank you again to Lessing's Hospitality for making this possible. New York League of Conservations, and we hope to see you at the Oyster Ball. Thank you.